Fellas, I'm sitting out by the pool thinking about what I'm going to teach you today so that you can get jacked and juicy like Beef Cannon Bobby in the thumbnail. And I laugh because Beef Cannon Bobby is a hilarious nickname. But anyway, I thought I'd bring you a week of my training and just talk about how it works and then what you can take away from it. For those that aren't aware, I train full body. Now, it's not your traditional 5x5 type of full body. It's tailored to me so that I can make gains. I'm an advanced trainee. I've got a lot of muscle and I'm very strong. So I need to approach things a little differently. It's mostly inspired by like a mix between an Arnold Split, Silver era full body training, and then my own BERSERK method principles to form this giga monster of a program. There's some major pros and cons. First and foremost, off the top of my head, I can do a shitload of volume and recover from it because I have a lot of rest days. I have a lot of frequency as well for the same reason. I can take a lot of time away from the gym to recover. That's huge, especially as you get more advanced. And then I get to perform a lot of different exercises. So that tailors to the fun aspect of things. It tailors to hitting the muscle from every angle. But the con is that these sessions are brutal. I'm not going to lie to you. My sessions are like 2 hours long. But that's also a pro because they build a lot of work capacity. And that's what a lot of people need more of, in my opinion. So it could be a pro or a con depending upon how you look at it. Another thing to consider, you could consider a con, I guess, is that they require intra-workout nutrition. That's just the Giga Brain way of saying you're going to need to eat something in the middle of these workouts to survive. That's what I do, meaning I take in some calories in the middle of training, usually after like the leg portion of it. But that's also a pro just because I like to eat. But regardless of that, a pretty big deal breaker for most people that would like to train something like me. I don't think you need to make gains, especially if you're newer. You could use like a free upper lower template that I leave literally in the description of every video. But a pretty big deal breaker for most people is that my split is going to be 10 to 12 days long. That's including rest, meaning I'm training on different days of the week every week. So realistically, I don't want you to copy exactly what I do. I'm 200 pounds with abs, and like I said, bro, I have a lot of muscle, and on top of having a lot of muscle, I can lift some heavy-ass weights. But you can absolutely, like I said, learn from what I do and apply those key principles to your training. There's 5 major lessons that I can impart to y'all today that you can apply to your own training that are going to allow you to reap some of the benefits that I've been able to reap from my own training. I've never had more fun with my training, and I've never had a better gym life balance as a result of how I structure my training. Before we get into that, though, I teased this on the community post, and I'm going to show it off a little bit here. But there's a strength standards calculator that I made. This is the perfect strength standards calculator, because I find most strength standards calculators to be useless, in my opinion. You don't need a calculator to tell you that you need to get a lift stronger or that you're a jabroni or not. What I want to do, and what my mission is with this calculator, is to tell you how strong I would expect someone to be on common exercises and variations that are in most people's programs. So in other words, if you bench 200, you squat 250, you deadlift 315, congratulations, bro. Good for you. The calculator isn't going to tell you if you're beginner, advanced, intermediate. It's just going to tell you what you should be striving to hit with good form. Now, emphasize good form. You don't just horse the weight around to just fulfill the numbers that this calculator is going to tell you. You lift it with good form and good technique. That aside, bro, it isn't going to tell you what I would expect you to be hitting on common exercises. A lot of people are going to have questions along the lines of, well, with that being said, bro, I have long arms or long legs. What about my leverages? Isn't going to account for different leverages. Absolutely. So not everybody is going to be good at everything. The calculator may tell you that you are relatively below standard on tricep press downs or curls or whatever the case may be. That is just an indication that you need to work on those things in spite of your leverages. It also is going to have a range. So there's going to be what I consider to be, your good standard for your strength level on curls and press downs and everything like that. And then there's going to be the impossibly meaty category. And that's, bro, I love that descriptor, impossibly meaty. Impossibly meaty is just going to indicate that you're like ahead of the curve on that particular exercise. So if you have something that is below standard, you just work on that below standard lift, right? This is going to be a super valuable resource that I'm going to leave in the description of the next Q&A. I'm going to show off more of it there. So if you're interested in that, make sure that you tune into our next Q&A and hot takes roundtable thing. Now, I'm pretty well-rounded myself, but even me, man, my biggest weaknesses are the incline and, to a lesser extent, overhead work, mostly because my shoulders aren't as strong as my big-ass meaty pecs. I've shown y'all like a picture of what my strengths and weaknesses are. So if you have a few weaknesses of your own, don't feel bad, because not even I'm as good at everything as I should be. The first thing relating to my split that I want to teach y'all is how to emphasize things on your training. That's very important. So let's get right into it. How I like to emphasize sessions is just going to depend upon what I want to work on that day. It's very simple, bro. How do you bias towards the arms? You just do arms first, and you bias your exercise selection towards arms. I talked about that a bit in my beef cannon arms video, but bro, you just design a workout around a central idea. That's breaking it down Barney style. Meaning, as I said, if you want big arms, pick arm bias stuff. If you want big back, you do back exercises first, and you pick more back exercises, and you design your training around that. And then if you want big legs, same fucking thing, bro. You just open up with more leg exercises. For me, my current split looks like this. And I have cool names for these training sessions, okay? So just bear with me, all right? First and foremost, session number 1, horse kick. I start with a lot of leg work, all right? I do between 40 and 50 reps of leg press. Directly after that, in a pre-exhausted state, I'm doing some heel elevated squats with a slow tempo. After that, I refuel when I hit an upper body push workout. Next up, Belgian blue, biasing the back and the biceps. I'm going to open up with a vertical push and pull, with a horizontal push and pull is until later in the week. That's going to be a superset. And then after that, I'm doing a full pull workout, and then I'm touching up some lower body. After that, 3. 3's name isn't as cool. It's more vanilla, but it's a classic Silver Age full body workout. It's pretty even balance of everything. Not really biasing one thing over the other. Like I said, just a little of everything. 4, Beef Cannon Bobby. This is a new freaking title that a commenter helped me with. I told him I'd use it because it gave me a hearty laugh. But it's going to be arm emphasized if the fucking name wasn't indicative of that. So it's basically a full arm day. Some ring calisthenics to touch up the pecs and the back. And then, harakiri via leg extensions, meaning I do a lot of leg extensions. I start with a set to failure, and then it's a rest pause to match however many reps I hit on that top set. It's called mile rep match. That's just the caveman way of explaining that. And then finally, bro, I have the Dragon Slayer back. Again, I'm emphasizing back again, but I'm generally attacking a little bit of everything, and that's actually my hardest session, my 5th session. One thing that I want you to keep in mind is that when you emphasize certain things, there needs to still be a level of general development on a session that is emphasized, say, towards arms. So on my program, on my split, on my arm bias day, Beef Cannon Bobby, workout number 4, I'm still doing calisthenics with rings. Very stimulative, great hypertrophy stimulus, but very easy to recover from. And again, myo rep match leg extensions, basically death by cluster sets, okay? There needs to be a level of generality so that your sessions flow into one another, even if you bias something on that day. And that's going to be the next important thing that I want to talk about, how to make your sessions flow into one another. It's very important, and this is the question that I want you to pose to yourself to make sure that you don't lose the plot, essentially. How does this session help my other sessions? Like I said, for example, Beef Cannon Bobby, my arm bias session, helps realistically every other session in my split because I'm beefing up muscles that are important for performance on every other day. I'm beefing up my quads with the myo rep match leg extensions. That's going to help every lower body day that involves a squat motion pattern. I'm beefing up the arms. That's going to help with presses and pulls, so on and so forth. The same can be said for any other session on my training split, and you should be able to do the same thing. You should be able to point any random day in your split and explain how it helps something else on another random day, okay? The foolproof way to do this is, if you're, paralysis by analysis guy and that just fucking confused you, is to just make sure that you're working muscle groups 2 to 3 times per week with similar movements. For example, I only bench press on average 1 time every 10 to 12 days or so, but I do some form of pressing on every training session. I've never made better progress on my bench than what I'm personally doing now. I'm not telling you to do that. For me, as I said, as an advanced lifter, that's what's working well for me. But the principle is that I'm still pressing every session. So each pressing session is going to help the next session. Does that make sense? Another example, I only squat as a finisher after crushing my legs with deep Dr. Mike full ROM style leg press. But I'm working my quads or adductors again pretty much every session, okay? Just like with the horizontal presses. Because there's continuity in the muscle groups that I work, every session helps the next session, and I continue to make progress. Just keep that in mind, bro, and you'll be good to go. I talked a lot about variations with the last couple points that I made, but the third thing that I want to talk to y'all about is something very important, because I'm a big believer in, if I don't need to change something, I won't change it. So, like, for example, bro, I wore the same crusty-ass pair of sandals for years, including when I met my woman, my now fiance. The first date, I wore goddamn crusty-ass slippers, all right? I've had the same crusty Target slip-on shoes for the past 4 years. If I don't need to change something, I'm not going to change it. So any exercise that I can do multiple times, bro, I will. Next principle, what types of exercises do we need variations for? Which can we keep the same session to session? So there are exercises in my program, and this is going to include rest times, rep ranges, and sets, that I keep the same on 2 or 3 different days, where my only form of progression is to do more than I did the last time. Literally, same rep range, same weight, same everything, just do 1 or 2 more reps. Off the top of my head, that'd be seated lateral raises, any ab exercises I have in my program, calves, tricep press downs. What these lifts have in common is that they're easy to do in high volumes, they're easy to do to failure in high volumes, and they're very easy to recover from. You don't need variations of those, in my opinion. You just need to focus on getting better at them. And the way to do that, again, in my opinion, is just repetition, just the kitchen sink, all right? Now, for bigger and more involved movement patterns like presses, pulls, hinges, it pays to have variations for a couple of different reasons. One, because each variation brings something different to the table in terms of how they work the muscle, the angle at which they work the muscle, or the fatigue that they generate, while also still being similar enough that they all, again, as per the last point, help one another. So, like, for example, 3 different pressing exercises off the top of my head that I have done or I do in my program. Larson press, ring push-ups, and guillotine press. They all work the muscles, the pecs, the shoulders, triceps differently, but they're still similar enough that they all help one another. And they also have the benefit of they fatigue the body differently. Which brings me into my next point. How to pick exercises to maximize the stimulus to fatigue ratio. Some people hear certain acronyms or phrases with regards to exercise and wonder what the fuck I'm talking about. If you don't know what a stimulus to fatigue ratio is, just think of it like this. How much does this cost versus what am I getting from it, right? So if you go to a restaurant, this is the most giga-brain freaking example I'm going to give, bro. But for me, if I'm going to a restaurant, I expect a certain amount of quality because I'm going to be spending a certain amount of money that I could have spent on groceries, for example. Whereas I may settle for something that I could whip up at home in 2 seconds, just being okay. I am not going to accept a dish just being okay at a restaurant if I'm paying $100 per person before the tip. I'm going to be like, bro, this shit was ass. Think about your exercises the same way. Cost versus what you get from it. Now, in terms of how much you'll need to worry about this, remember that it is a ratio. This is more important to think about the stronger and the bigger that you get and the more stimulus and fatigue that you can get from doing an exercise. But as a rule of thumb, it's not something that you really have to worry about a ton when you're newer. So, for example, I say this all the time, bro, but if you deadlift 3 plates for a 1 rep max, you don't need to worry about, oh, is including barbell rows in my training program going to over fatigue me? Like, am I going to be able to recover from this? Am I going to be able to recover from a 5x5 on deadlifts when I'm using like 250 pounds on a 5x5? No, you don't have to worry about that. But it's something that as you get stronger, you need to think about. This is the easiest way to think about it, bro. This is like some scientific shit I'm about to bring you. But when you get stronger, just think in terms of heavy, medium, and light exercises and how you can get within a close proximity of failure, meaning can you get a hard set in with each of those categories. So, for example, I love my pressing workouts. So, for example, we use horizontal presses again. Bench, specifically on the Bells of Steel Arch Nemesis cambered bar, my favorite way to bench press right now. That's a heavy movement on my program. I can get to failure with like 285, 300 pounds between 8 and 12 reps, depending upon how heavy it is. That's my heavy exercise. Guillotine press is going to be like a medium to light exercise because I can get to failure in the 8 to 15 rep range with like between 205 and 225 pounds. Ring push-ups are light, obviously, no shit, because they just use body weight. But I can change the leverage on the lift to reach failure with between 10 and 20 reps, okay? Generally speaking, or as a rule of thumb, in picking heavy, light, and medium exercises, you don't want to pick all of one category. So if you pick all heavy exercises, you're getting a great stimulus from the heavy weight and the volume that you're doing with that heavy weight. But there's going to be a fatigue cost that you could recover from, but is going to make you take away from other things in your program. Much the same, if you pick all light exercises, yeah, you're mitigating a lot of fatigue, but then you may also be missing out on a lot of stimulus. So just maintain balance in your program. Where there is yin, there must be yang, okay? You don't want to do too much of one thing over another. Now, in a full body program like my own, having a full blend of all of those is very important because these workouts are brutal. They take a lot of time. 2 hours is how long my average session is, and it's a fast-paced 2 hours, meaning I'm not sitting on my ass for 10 minutes in between sets, which brings me into the last thing I want to talk about. I think this is 5, fellas. Y'all know I can't goddamn count. I make the top 10 lists, and then it ends up being like 17 exercises. But anyway, my last point, regardless of the numeric value, is the importance of intra-workout nutrition and maintaining a good hydration status. Fellas, that's just a way of saying, sometimes, especially if your training split is grueling like mine, you have to refuel in the middle of the workout. Now, why is that? Now, I want to talk about why it's important first. As I said, my sessions are high volume, and they're about 2 hours long. And I often combine what is close to a full leg workout. Like at the beginning, you saw me do like a set of 15 or 20 leg press and then squats. That's a full freaking leg workout. And then I get in a full freaking pressing workout right after that, damn near. I have to refuel in between those things with some sugar, some electrolytes, and some water. Now, you lose a shit ton of water and electrolytes after what would be between 40 and 60 reps of deep leg presses, 2 sets of squats, and some pressing, mostly from sweating, okay? Maintaining a good hydration status is important because water is what helps our muscles contract and get them pumped up. All right, so visually they help you get a pump. And electrolytes at a high level, for the purposes of what we're talking about, are what help you retain that water. They do other things, so I don't want some fucking science whiz saying, well, actually, magnesium and calcium do. I know what the fuck they do, but I'm just talking about maintaining hydration status, okay? Anyway, John Meadows used to talk about this a lot, and it's a really effective strategy to keep your energy level stable, give you a second wind in your training, and then allow you to do higher training volumes and higher volumes of quality sets. And that's very important. It's going to allow you to put your best foot forward. Now, in terms of what I recommend specifically, I'm going to recommend that you get in some sodium, some potassium, some magnesium, and some calcium, along with some sugar to help all that good stuff absorb more quickly and to replenish your energy. That's going to look like drinking any popular sports beverage. Gatorade is probably I'm not saying Gatorade is bad, but it doesn't have as much electrolytes as, say, like a Body Armor or a Prime. But anything that you don't get from your sports beverage, say if you drink a Prime, they're sugar-free, you could put a little bit of sugar in it, and that is going to allow you to get a lot of what we just talked about. Likewise, if you had like a liquid IV, if you wanted a little bit more sugar, you could then put some sugar in that, or you could put a liquid IV in a Gatorade, whatever you need to do to get her in. You're going to want between 200 and 300 calories of energy drink that contains all of those things. I'm going to recommend that you make this a common staple in your training, where a set portion of your daily calories are dedicated towards intra-workout nutrition and replenishing your hydration status. That's the most important thing, fellas, just nutrition, hydration status. But that's all she wrote. I thought this was a cool way to tell you how I train, teach you some things about what to think about when you make your own programs. If you need more, I have examples of free programs in the description. I want you to check those out and then watch the videos on the screen now that you've watched this one. You fellas have a great day. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.